We're also finding elsewhere in Egypt and around the world that other things were happening in that same period, 7,000 to 5,000 approximately BC, that to me puts the Sphinx into a larger regional and global setting, that it's not just an isolated thing. It doesn't seem as isolated as it did 15 years ago when we had less knowledge. You come to tentative conclusions. If more data comes in that seems to indicate something else, I don't ever want to be afraid to change my conclusions or, go where the evidence takes me.
I'll stick with my extreme 36,000 BC date until proved otherwise, and if proved otherwise, I will change my mind.
How can we tie the concept of the Yuga, or Vedic cycles, into something more concrete that we can recognize in our own history? If we re-examine the stories that are often dismissed as fanciful myth, we might find that it indicates greater forces in play.
Those of us that are seriously looking at this old Vedic concept of the world ages, the cycle, we know that the Golden Age, the last Golden Age, basically the peak of the cycle was about 11,500 BC, highest point. We also know that Plato mentions a series of catastrophes which have come down to us as the Atlantis legend, in which he claims that on our calendar system it would have been around 9,500 BC. Some tremendous upheaval apparently occurred, a lot of destruction. Isn't it also possible that for all of those maybe several thousand years, whatever those catastrophes were so cataclysmic that even with that Silver Age or Golden Age consciousness, they weren't fully able to recover? The end of the Golden Age and the decline into the falling Silver Age, or what we would refer to as Mental Age, marked the time at which we were falling out of a state on this planet where the average person had the potential or capability to be in a state, a very high state of awareness. And they were a far more enlightened and benevolent society than we would be able to even imagine now, but they were beginning to lose that almost divine state that exists in the Golden Age. And as they started to descend into the Silver Age, there began to be more of an emphasis on what we would now refer to as sacred sites and sacred structures.
You could almost think of them as machines to enhance consciousness or to create an environment where, you might call it altered states of experience, but changes in consciousness, expansion of consciousness.
What these were really intended to do, it wasn't so much for the selfish purpose of, for example, boosting up a few individuals. This actually had to do with a much larger global perspective. And that's effectively what the Great Pyramid was. It was basically a device, a generator for, if you will, broadcasting and transmitting throughout the planetary structure, a type of field which uplifted the entire humanity. For at least 1,000 years, this structure performed beautifully. My guess is that it probably did a lot to help offset the fall into the Dark Ages. And I think what the pyramids did is that for those individuals that were at least somewhat receptive, it kind of kept that energy polarized into the higher centers.
This is very real, and I think this is very important. It's like great art or great spiritual insight, expansion of consciousness. In a way, there's nothing more important than that.
It couldn't do it forever because eventually Mother Nature is going to win out, and this cycle is part of nature. It's as much a part of the natural world as day and night are. We have the ability to grasp those electromagnetic forces and the more fundamental forces that underlie those, to basically prop up humanity for a while using the system. Now the pyramids only have a very direct effect if you're close to them, which is the way it is in this age. If we go stand in the pyramid, we might feel an effect like that. But And I suspect thousands of years ago, you didn't have to be near it. I think it was probably a global effect.
The physical structure could only do so much. The wisdom keepers created social structures as an additional influence to extend the energy of the Golden Age by creating mystery schools that preserved the ancient knowledge.
The whole idea of the schools of mystery and the ancient knowledge and preserving those traditions that had come down from those fabulous ages, that was lost. And then eventually it was ridiculed, and then finally it had to go underground because people would either actively burn those texts or, you know, persecute the people who had that belief system. And I think at that point we were in the Dark Ages.
The exact end of the cycle of darkness is approaching. Each winter solstice before 2012, our sun comes into close alignment with the galactic center. This means we are beginning to feel the shift of energy already, even though the exact conjunction is December the 21st, 2012.
So all signs point to the interpretation that we are deep into the period of increasing darkness. What happens at the end of that downward trend is a turnabout. And I believe that that's where we are right now in history. The Mayan material for 2012 basically indicates this turnabout point, this point of maximized spiritual darkness. But then in the cycles of time, we turn the corner, and we have an opportunity to open up to the transformational energies that can sweep us into the next cycle.
I hope that the Mayan ancestors trying to interpret the few writings that are left are correct, that it means there's going to be some quickening or something like that. Because that would actually go with our latest understanding of the Yugas. What a Yuga cycle really is one precession, the equinox. And you know, using these later scholars' interpretation, we're actually in the very early stages of consciousness accelerating.
It has to do with the opportunity that we have to open up to the divine wisdom, to the transformational energies. But it always comes down to free will. Nothing is predetermined. It always comes down to a choice that we all have to close down in fear, succumb to fear, close down, become more limited in our consciousness, or open up to the blessing of the connection to the higher wisdom that is symbolized in the Maya tradition by the galactic center, the womb of the Great Mother, that which can transform and renew.